7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
And now, before the next programme, Friday night, Saturday morning, an appeal on behalf of the less fortunate.
Hello. I'd like you to remember, as you sit in front of your cosy fires watching me, that there are some people less fortunate than yourselves. There are some people who not only can't see me, but can't hear what I'm saying either. Please send your donations here to the BBC and help those people who haven't got a television set.
Friday night, Saturday morning, but yesterday's gone, there's a weekend dawning. Friday night, Saturday morning at last. Pack up your troubles then, Monday's the day for them. Oh, it's time to relax again. Friday night, Saturday morning at last.
Can we do it now, Tony?
Yes.
Fine. We thought this would be a propitious moment to get something which has been worrying Robert and I now for quite some time off both our chests.
Yes, we have an announcement to make and can really think of no better place to make it than here on television, where Martin and I are spending a very happy time together. Both of us.
You know, a university education opens one's mind, doesn't it, to a great many alternative attitudes and modes of behaviour. It makes one conscious of one's mental identity.
Of one's physical identity.
Of one's class identity.
And of one's sexual identity.
And it's our sexual identities that we'd like to share with you on television tonight. We've both come to terms with the realization that we're both heterosexual.
Yeah, I mean, I'm straight, I'm het, I'm a norm, whatever you like to call me. I realised this in my first week at Cambridge. Some friends of mine asked me down to a straight bar in one of the seamier districts of the city, and I went along, you know, for a laugh.
Yeah.
But as I went in, a feeling of complete ease came all over me.
A feeling of being at one.
Well, a feeling of being not one. A feeling of relief at being among people who were all exclusively het. I found myself spending more and more time down at the Beefcake Club. There was occasionally a bit of trouble. Groups of gays used to hang around at the exit and beat us up as we came outside. I felt much more relaxed and accepted by society. So much so that my girlfriend and I even contemplated having a baby. But we were told we stood the risk of having it taken away and adopted by a lesbian couple.
Well, I realised within my first year at Cambridge that I was, you know, straight as a seesaw. I mean, my mother was appalled when I broke it to her. Oh my God, she screamed, "You've gone the same way as your father." But gradually she came to accept my heterosexuality. And I hope all of you tonight watching, as well as the studio audience here and all the technicians will as well. Yes, well, I think that's probably all I've got to say.
That's all I have to say to you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name's Martin Bergman and you've never heard of me. I'm a member of the Cambridge University Footlights Club, a club whose past members include, among others, Jonathan Miller, Peter Cook, David Frost, Eleanor Bron, John Cleese, the Goodies, Clive James and Julie Covington. My sole guest tonight, who'll be appearing later on in the programme, is the 1959 president of Footlights, Mr. Peter Cook. Also in tonight's show are the rest of this year's Cambridge Footlights, Emma Thompson, Hugh Laurie, Robert Bathurst and Simon McBurney, and we'll be performing extracts from the 1979 Footlights revue, Nightcap. But first, as this is the final programme on a Friday night, we thought it would be appropriate if we gave you news of next week's broadcasting highlights from the BBC. Well, on Radio 2 on Tuesday, the public's favourite panel game returns. Jimmy Edwards, Magnus Magnusson, Peter Woods and Reginald Bosanquet star in next week's edition of Does the Team Drink? Whilst on Wednesday at 7 o'clock, Diana Dawes tells of her night of passion with Oliver Reed, followed by Just a Minute with Nicholas Parsons. Moving on to television. On Sunday, there's another episode in which Richard Stilgo looks back over the events of his week. That's Diary of a Nobody. Whilst on Friday, there's another half hour of innuendo and double entendre at Grace Brothers department store in Are You Being Served?, in which Mrs. Slocum sits by the fire with her cat and singes her pussy. Captain Peacock goes into Tesco's to buy some cereal and gets his oats. And Mr. Humphries has it off with a sailor. And now a short commercial break.
I was feeling down in the dumps one day when our little dog was miraculously saved from being run over by not going out. I certainly learnt my lesson.
Tell us how you learnt your lesson. Write to Down in the Dumps in the Daily Con. Yes, announcing the Daily Con, Britain's newest new newspaper and cheaper than Britain's cheapest. Yes, it's the Daily Con, the paper that's spreading like an epidemic all over the country. Our motto is keep it cheap. And there's bird galore going cheap in the Daily Con this week. Kirby Katrina is on page 2, but don't worry if you miss her there, because she's on every other even-numbered page today and every day, exclusively in the Daily Con. Open your Daily Con and enter our Spot the News Item competition. Free dog. We'll send the lucky winner the address of the Battersea Dogs Home, and they can pick up the dog of their choice. Or our easy-to-enter, write an implausible lead story on the front page competition. We'll print one every day, and the winner gets an envelope of free, real human hair from the heads of the Daily Con staff. Stick it on yourself or give it to your bald friends. On the centre pages, the editor spreads malicious gossip about your favourite telly stars and talks frankly about his alleged psychic relationship with Marilyn Monroe. Yes, in the Daily Con, there's nothing. Nothing but TV news, horoscopes, competitions, sport and scandal. Now a word from your top con man, the Con's editor, sports writer, astrologer and van driver who, naturally enough, wishes to remain anonymous.
The Daily Con is now 4 months old. When it opened, I pledged to you, my readers, not to include any foreign news items or photographs of lesser-known overseas dignitaries. And I've kept to that pledge.
That's the Daily Con, Britain's cheapest and Britain's shortest. It's headlines all the way in the paper with more pictures and less words. Definitely the paper for people who can't read.
Still only 6p.
Yes, still only 6 pages. Buy one.
Well, I'm heartbroken, naturally. I mean, we were so compatible, had so many good times together, and it's all been slung away for no good reason at all. And I just can't cope, frankly. I've tried everything, the doctor, the psychiatrist. I've turned to you, really, as a last resort.
Okay, chaps, gather round. Now, I'm going to be perfectly frank with you. We're in a bit of a tight spot here. But we've been in tight spots before, and we've pulled through. At least some of us have. Officers mostly, but... Now, I'm going to be blunt with you, men. The enemy do, in fact, outnumber us. A bit. By how many? Yes, well, that's hard to say, really. There are, let me see, 17 of us, and, quite a few more of them. But then that's your Zulu, you see. They're cowards at heart, and they do tend to fight en masse. Just get one of them on his own and blow his head off, and he's a different proposition altogether. Now, the sergeant major tells me that there's been a rumor going round to the effect that we have, in fact, been abandoned by the main army. This is quite untrue. Only this morning, I received a telegram from headquarters. Actually, it's in code, so I can't, in fact, read it to you. But what? Oh, is it? Oh. Come back, you silly buggers. Now, as for our firepower, how many... We've all got rifles. Good, that's splendid, good. And how much ammunition have we, for example, got? Is that all? Yes, well, I tell you what, Surgeon, yes, would you just step this way? What I want you to do, Surgeon, is, when Watkins fires the bullet, want you to run out to whoever is hit, dig the little blighter out, and bring it back again, if that's all right. Now, they may outnumber us, men, but I want you to remember that we have the advantage. They've only got spears, and we've got rifles. So that when we... What? Yes, well, it looks as if they have, in fact, got rifles, but we've still got the advantage. What is it? Yes, what is it? Well, we've got jolly smart red uniforms on, and the fuzzy wuzzies are going to feel pretty bloody silly when they get down here and properly dressed, so that's the main thing. Now, just before I dismiss you men, I want to leave you with this one thought. I want you to remember, no matter how bad it gets, that we're British. And they're not. Not yet, anyway.
I mean, I suppose we were operating on two different timescales, you know. I mean, she wanted everything tomorrow, I wanted everything yesterday. But I don't think that's a particularly valid reason for wrecking a relationship, do you?
Hello. You may remember that last week we asked you to send in any old woolen articles of clothing or bits of wool you had lying around. And with that, we were able to build not one, but 3 old people's homes. Unfortunately, they all blew away in the January winds. So this year, we're asking you to send in any old bricks or cement that you might have lying around.
Oh, I loved it. No, really, I absolutely loved it. No, quite simply, the best school play since I played the lead here so many years ago now. I'm terribly sorry I was late, by the way. I'm appallingly sorry. I was at this dreadfully dull cocktail party. The usual crowd were there, you know, Larry Olivier, Dottie Tootin, Frankie Finley, and Emlyn Hughes. But what I thought of the second half was a triumph. No, an absolute triumph. I thought your choice of play was wonderful, and I think I could detect Bunty's influence here. Hello, Bunty. My dear old English master. Oh, so courageous to have chosen to have done Journey's End in drag. Well done, Bunty. One teeny criticism, though. Is she here? No. The makeup. Well, I'm afraid I hated it. Yes, I know Matron hasn't done it before, but she really has no idea about pancake, and God, it showed. No, it's such a pity we didn't have our regular makeup artiste this year. Dear Dolly. Such a sweet man. And a real friend. Bunty and Dolly, oh, such memories. You know, boys, Bunty has such good judgment. I mean, he came up to me after I played the lead here, coincidentally in Journey's End. And he said to me, Charles, one day you're going to be the most colossal success. And how right he was. But of course, to be a colossal success in the theatre, I mean, you do have to give an awful lot of yourself to your art. I mean, only last year I was looking around for a subject for my new play, and the most dreadful thing happened. My dear friend, Lillian, died. You know, boys, Lillian had come up to me the day before she died, and she'd said to me, Charles, you're quite simply the most talented person in the world. And you know, that's what I really miss, Lillian. So I decided to call my play, in her memory, quite simply, Charles. Yes, and a copy of my play is this year's drama prize. Jonathan, well done. I thought it was simply splendid the way you remembered nearly all those lines. But, Bunty, I'm afraid I'm going to be a little bit naughty this year, because I'm going to give this year's drama prize to, can you guess? David, who came on at the end as the corporal. Oh, David, you swept up the treads after the explosion and managed your miniskirt so well that I'm going to give this year's drama prize to you because you handled your small part so beautifully. And I'm sure Bunty had an awful lot to do with that, didn't you, Bunty? Yes. Well, of course, I think we can safely say, boys, that Bunty's done it again. And, of course, he has. I mean to say this is his 26th successive production of Journey's End in drag. And I would like to say, mwah, farewell to you dear boys, and I'm just going to pop off and join Bunty in the Master's common room for a bit.
Stranger coming.
I got eyes.
Wonder who he is.
Well, if we knew that, he wouldn't be a stranger now.
You know, that reminds me of the last time, way back, must have been last Tuesday, in Dead Gulch City.
You missed, baby. So down my leg.
Well, anyhow, there was this critter came a-herring through town on his horse.
On his road?
On his horse.
On his horse?
That's what I said.
Oh.
And he was a-shouting and a-yelling, everybody out, Big Jim's a-coming. And they was a-boarding up the shops and a-loading up the wagons, and in 4 minutes, and that ain't 4 minutes from when he said Big Jim's a-coming, that's 4 minutes from when he was just a speck of dust on the horizon, there wasn't nobody in the town, save me and the bartender. Well, I was just sitting there, rocking backwards and forwards on my chair and feeling a mite dizzy, when there was this thundering noise outside the door, and then crashing in through the door, taking 6 feet of plaster either side of the door, was the biggest, hugest, meanest looking critter of a man you ever saw. And he was 9 feet tall if he was an inch, and he had a beard like a pine forest and 6 4-guns strapped to his belt.
6 4-guns, you say, baby?
Hell, 4 6-guns, Bob.
4 6-guns.
And he was cracking a 30-foot rattlesnake as a whip, and he was riding the biggest, blackest, meanest looking brute of a horse you ever saw.
What, baby?
Brute of a horse.
Oh.
That's what I said. And he came a crashing down. He came a crashing over to the bar, and he said to the bartender, "Give me a whiskey."
You missed again, Avy. So down your front.
Well, anyhow, the bartender, he was a shaking and a quivering, and he started to pour him a whiskey, and this big, huge, mean-looking critter of a man just snatched the bottle, and I swear to God, it was down in one. The bartender looked at him and said, "You want another?" And this big, huge, mean-looking critter of a man just stared him in the eye and said, "Are you kidding? Big Jim's a-coming."
Now, that really is a very old and tedious joke. Because I told you about that last time in Tombstone.
Yep.
I mean, what offends me is the waste, really. You know, the whole bloody, stupid, senseless waste of the whole damn thing. You know, I mean, I regret it, I suppose. I suppose she does, but, you know, it's just nice to have someone like you to talk to, because otherwise I go mad, I think. No, really. I mean, what would you do in my position? What would you do? What can one do? One can't do anything, can one?
That was really great.
Yes, that was great.
Was it your first?
Yes. Yes, was it your first?
Yeah, it was. No, it was really great.
Yes, it was great. Don't you think we ought to have done it together, though?
Isn't it rich? Haven't you seen? Somebody's constantly singing this song on your screen. Send up the genre. Perched on a stool. my feelings outpour. Casually turn to my left and cue camera 4. Send up the genre of this type of song. Just when you think I'm stuck in G, I suddenly speed up the lyric and end up in C. I bring an effortless feel, yet don't make a mistake. What nobody knows is it's the 10th take. Look at the floor, seem in a daze. Take an unnecessary breath in the central phrase and go on and on with this bleeding song throughout my career. Alter my pose, fixing a stare, waving my grief in your face and my hands in midair, while the chorus abounds with a phrase about clowns. What's that doing there?
Well, what can I say about my guest tonight? Actor, raconteur, writer, entrepreneur. These are just some of the words he can spell. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Peter Cook.
Yes, sure. Yes, sure.
I was told in the dress rehearsal that I had to shake hands. That's chat show etiquette, apparently. You
Perhaps a lot that way, actually. Do you know, I read in Playboy, for years and years I've been told it's impossible to catch by sitting on a toilet seat. And in last month's Playboy, and Playboy seldom lies, it is possible to catch it from sitting on anything at all. Has this chair been inspected before?
I was going to ask you, this is my first attempt at doing anything like this. You hosted a chat show once, didn't you, many moons ago?
Yes, I did, yes.
I was wondering if you got any public reaction to it at all.
Yes, the public reaction was that I should desist from hosting a chat show. One of the main problems I found as an interviewer was an inability to hear what the other person was saying. And if I did, no interest in it whatsoever either. And Nancy Banks-Smith of The Guardian, she alleges, and it may be true, that Kirk Douglas was a guest on the programme. When he came in a fit of nerves, I said, "Who are you?" instead of "How are you?" But it didn't make any effect. He said, "Well, Peter, I'm extremely well, and I just flew in from wherever he'd flown in from and did the normal sort of number."
Did anyone ever write to you about it? Did you get complaints? Because it was a live show, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a very, very live show. And the viewing figure, there were only 3 programmes went out. And it had sort of disaster interest in that it was live and people would tune in because they couldn't believe that anything so awful was going on before their very eyes. And one gentleman wrote to me and said, accused me of being a drug addict, and found out his telephone number, and on air dialed through to this number and got the man's wife. And I said, "Hello, I'm Peter Cook. I'm on television at the moment doing a live show could I speak to your husband, please? And she said, well, he's in the bath. And I said, well, could you get him out, because he's written to me and I wanted to ask him a question. And she said, are we on television? And I said, well, you're not on television. I'm on television holding a telephone, but you're not on television. Just holding the phone doesn't actually get you on television. She said, I'll just switch on to check. And she switched on and said, I've checked it, I'm not on television. Will you be zooming in on my husband? He's in the bath, and I won't be zooming in on him. He's in the bath. I'd love to be able to zoom in on your husband who's in the bath. I can't do that. Could you get him out of the bath? And there's another long pause. This is riveting television, you see, just holding a telephone. Looking like a right Sir Anthony. Oh, Cockney rhyming slang. And eventually, thank you, John Bindon, and good night. It's nice of John Bindon, wasn't it, to confess to Sun readers. He confessed to Sun readers that he'd never had an affair with Princess Margaret. Tonight, I'm willing to confess that as well. Anyway, finally, this punter, whoever he was, came to the phone, and I said, you wrote in and said, I was a drug addict. I said, why did you do that? And he said, well, I was lost for words. It took about 7 minutes, this conversation.
Sure. Exactly 20 years separates you and I as presidents of Footlights. I was wondering...
Yes, roughly.
Roughly
20 years. And of course, in those days, we all used to sit around, Sybil Thorndike and Oliver Milchett, Oliver Hardy, Solange Olivier and I, and we were all dazzled by the heady wine of Marxism. We used to sit up all night singing Das Kapital. We were idealists in those days, you know.
Who were your contemporaries? David Frost was in.
David Frost, yes, he was one of the so-called Lucan Circle. Yes, he was. David Frost was definitely there. I was about to add something to that, wasn't I? But I didn't. No, he was about the place, certainly, and he was very nice.
Were there...
What else can you say? He was pathetic. He used to... You see, this is where everybody else was completely wrong, because they all thought, in Footlight circles in any case, that David, you know, couldn't tell jokes or make jokes up and do anything funny, and nice and hard-working, he should be given a job of some kind. And he was given a job, and I really forget what it was. And of course, he was much better at being nice and doing things like remembering people's names and being industrious. And he was a very bright lad, and we didn't know it. I still don't, actually.
And talking of those times, people seem to think that Beyond the Fringe sprang fully born from Oxford and Cambridge, just as 4 years later the Monty Python team did. Is that the case?
No, it's not the case. I think anybody at Footlights at Cambridge now or any time since suffers because very often in the public mind, in any case, is the idea that the four of us in Beyond the Fringe, Jonathan Miller, myself, Alan Bennett and Dudley Moore, met at university, got a revue together, and then went straight to the West End, smash hit, off to Broadway. When in fact Jonathan had left Cambridge before I arrived, Dudley and Alan were at Oxford, and we only met because a guy called John Bassett, who never gets any credit for this, John Bassett is the name, who is the assistant to the artistic director at the Edinburgh Festival, thought of putting the four of us together. He knew Dudley and Alan from Oxford, he knew of me and he knew of Jonathan, and it was his idea, and we did a late night review after the old Vic Seagull, and got more laughs than they did. And in fact, the year before they'd had Flanders and Swan, who also didn't go straight from university, to a drop of the hat. And Monty Python similarly. I don't know which was which and where was where, but they worked for a long time separately or jointly before forming up and becoming Monty Python's Flying Circus. So it was a myth that we all sort of met at university, got up a revue, and were immediate stars in that.
So what did you do when you left Cambridge? You started the Establishment Club, yes, on the...
Yeah, in my second year at Cambridge, I thought, why on earth isn't there a club where they do political satire? Because they had it in Berlin and they had it in Paris and places like that. And I thought, well, it's such an obvious idea that somebody's going to do it before me. In fact, nobody did. And I was looking around for premises in Covent Garden, actually. Couldn't get planning permission for change of usage. And eventually wound up in Greek Street. And that opened with John Bird, Eleanor Bron, John Fortune, a guy called Jeremy Geit, who was the only non-university person involved, who's now teaching drama at Yale. And he was great at falling over and farting, and he simultaneously. I mean, he was an excellent person to have about because he only mimed the farting. It was not real. And what was the question? I mean, I started it.
You started. But if that's the regular team, you also had guest stars. You had Lenny Bruce come to it.
Lenny Bruce came over, yeah.
What was he like?
Well, he was... it was most peculiar because I'd heard his records. And he was notorious for bad language and blasphemy and so on. And obviously a very good draw. But I had no idea what he was like, and I thought it was a big American star arriving, what do we do? So I had a large car, Rolls Royce or something, and went out to the airport to meet him. So, Mr. Cook for Mr. Bruce, and if you'd like to step this way. And out came this wreck, absolute shambling wreck, and sort of lurched into the car and insisted on playing this tape recordings of a conversation he'd had with a stewardess on the flight. And it was a very small, tiny tape recording. You couldn't hear anything. So, this is terrific, terrific. You hear. I thought, Jesus, what I got on my hands. So I booked him into a hotel, which he got chucked out of because the management felt there was an excess of hookers and in his room and too many syringes down the toilet. They had a very sort of old-fashioned attitude towards drugs. So he stayed with me. It's rather like this Charlie Parker died in my arms, isn't it? Well, he did, actually. And he stayed with me in Battersea. One of my first assignments was to go and get him some drugs, which I knew nothing about. He said he had this old war wound. He'd suffered this as a Marine, and he needed stuff called dilaudid, I think it was, which is a heroin derivative. And I had no idea how to get hold of drugs. So I couldn't call this gentleman in the bath. I mean, it was ages before that. So I thought, drugs, jazz. Do I know any jazz musicians? Rang Dudley. Dudley, any idea how I get hold of drugs at all? You know, sort of stuff, you know, that. And, yeah, Junior Aspirin. Which I didn't think was satisfying Lenny's craving. Anyway, I did get hold of a few jazz people who had vague ideas of certain doctors, and I went traipsing around London till about 3:30 in the morning with this terrible phony prescription that Lenny had. I think it was a phony prescription, Dr. Ziglovich, for dilaudid. This awful tatty piece of paper. I was wandering around to these doctors in the middle of the night, and they said, piss off, you know, in medical language. And I got back, and what I thought, I had a very fixed picture in my mind that Lenny Bruce, deprived of heroin, he'll be climbing up the wall, having the most appalling withdrawal symptoms, and screaming and yelling like I saw in the movies and so on, like the Snake Pit, whatever it was, with Olivia de Havilland, whoever was in that. And when I got back, he sat there quite quietly, and I said, well, Lenny, I'm terribly sorry, I couldn't get hold of any heroin. And he said, well, that's cool, I'd like some chocolate cake. And I got quite cross. I said, I'm willing to traipse all over London at 3 in the morning to look for heroin, but chocolate cake is out of the question. I refuse to go on you try and get chocolate cake at 3 o'clock in the morning. And this is 1962, where chocolate cake was not so available. Nylon stockings were still rationed, and life was tough.
Last week on this programme, I saw John Cleese being accused of being undergraduate, which is curious when one considers he's 40 years old. You yourself are 42 in half an hour, I think. Do you still consider your humour undergraduate?
I don't know. I really don't know what I consider my humour at all. I don't know what undergraduate humour is or schoolboy humour is, or I really can't get into any of those definitions, but it's usually a pejorative adjective used by older people to describe something they don't like. And fair enough. I don't go around saying that's senile humour. Well, I might now, I've got to laugh. I didn't see the programme. I've no idea what my humour is at all.
One last thing, I'd like to ask you for a moment about...
I want to ask you something, actually.
Yeah.
I think the world should know. I was going to launch into a very unnecessary attack on Gracie Fields. And it's not just attacking her after her death, because I've been attacking Gracie Fields for years, and I never had the opportunity to attack Gracie Fields on the air, and alas, she's not here to defend herself. But now she's dead, I thought I'd attack her gratuitously. Because I read about her in one of the popular Sunday papers, and she married this guy, Archie Pitts. And it was a marriage of convenience or inconvenience from her point of view, in that Archie moulded her. He sort of taught her everything. He sort of taught her to jump on the stage and dance and sing and worked her terrible hours, made her a massive money, but she complained about that, you see. And then she left Archie Pitts, an excellent man, as far as I can make out, throwing her on the stage and telling her what to do and having her sing Sally and all that stuff. And then she rushed off with this unsuitable band leader, Monty Banks, and he gambled all the money away that Archie Pitts had made. And then the part of her life which is really interesting is the 2 weeks of supreme happiness she had on the island of Capri with her one true love. And I think it is the Sunday People who revealed this, and she told the Sunday People reporter, "You must only tell this after my death," whereupon he shot her. No, she fell in love with this Irishman, you see. There was an artist, and they spent 2 marvellous weeks on Capri, and at the end of the 2 weeks, this Irish artist said, "Gracie," I won't do the accent because, well, I will. He said, "Gracie, you offer me everything in the world. You offer me everything a man could desire. Love, peace, wealth, contentment, fresh fish, sea views, joy, sexual frenzy, euphoria. You offer me all this, but if I stayed with you, I would lose the one thing I treasure most, my art." And he pissed off. And 25 years later, to show that he was right, 25 years later, a self-portrait by this Irish artist was sold at Sotheby's for £5. There's a lesson in that somewhere.
Well, I'm having...
It's very unnecessary, isn't it, attacking Gracie Fields?
Gracie. Well, I'm having signs made of me, so I better...
Yes. Have you also read...
Oh, God, yes.
No, I've read some news today which I'm very pleased about. It's Captain Scott of the Antarctic. This is why it's worth getting the Times. He's in this iceberg, you see, He's stuck in this iceberg, and the iceberg is moving away. So very soon, Captain Scott's remains, perfectly frozen, will drift out into the Atlantic and be available for historians to peer at. This is a very interesting story about Scott at the Antarctic finally making it back home. It's a very odd story, isn't it, that he's been frozen there all this time, and now, thanks to the climate, he's going to float away and get his dying wish to be cremated. I don't know, it's...
Well, I think on that note of Scott on the rocks, we better leave. Peter Cook, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Very informative.
And now, singing her version of one of her favourite songs, Miss Emma Thompson.
Littering pavements and shouting at bishops, squirting that ketchup at waiters in tea shops, frightening babies with horrible grins. These are a few of my favourite sins. Luring a poodle by complex maneuver, then strapping its nose to the charlady's hoover, sewing together the goldfish's fins. These are a few of my favourite sins. Using the teapot for breeding piranhas, taunting blind monkeys with concrete bananas, threatening winkles with gigantic pins. These are a few of my favourite sins. Stuffing black pudding down surgical trusses, pegging dead cats onto people in buses, dropping glass eyes into brigadier's gins. These are a few of my favourite sins. Julie Andrews is a girl who's always made a show of being so gay each year on Christmas Day that she's made me want to throw.
Composed, charming, soft-spoken, handsome, amiable. For many people, Barry Normal is a list of words. But he presented a very different side to those people who knew him well, to those people who shared their lives with him, to those people he interviewed.
The essence of Barry was Barry himself. He personified, if you like, everything that was Barry about himself. Undoubtedly had a certain something. I know that for a fact because I was the one who drove him to the clinic to get rid of it.
Barry was... Oh, Barry Normal. Oh.
Barry was a mystery, a puzzle. He was an enigma.
Enigma.
Yeah, that's right. He was enigma, enigming around the whole time. He was not only a good performer, a good actor. He was also a great lesbian. He was a thespian of great dispute. He always was a very stoolistic performer. He had great stool. I'm sorry, he had Groot stale. Slip of the tang there. His performance always had a certain penguin about it. Is that the word I'm looking for? Yeah, that'll do.
Barry was just amazing. You'd be on the set for maybe 2 or 3 hours, maybe a day or so behind schedule, and everyone just a little bit uptight. And Barry would just turn up there in his van right on time and sell us all tea and sandwiches. Barry's mobile diner. I'll never forget when... Sorry. Barry Normal. Back on him again.
Barry Normal showed a keen early interest in interviewing.
An interest that can be largely attributed to the influence of his mother, Ethel Normal.
All his family had a great affluence on him. His brothers, fathers, brothers, even his uncle and uncle. But it was definitely his mother that was the driving piano behind his career.
As he grew older, Barry realised that it wasn't just anyone he wanted to interview, but the stars of the great Hollywood films of the time, as a childhood friend remembers.
Yeah, Barry and me always used to come down here to the Roxy as it was then, you know, every week, see all the stars. I remember one particular occasion, we come out and they were cementing the pavement outside. And, you know, Barry thought it would be a real laugh to leave our footprints in the cement like the big Hollywood stars did outside the Chinese theatre. Well, yeah, down boy. Well, you know, I wasn't too keen on it at first, but, you know, Barry done it, so I thought, what the hell. It was quite funny, really, because the commissionaire come out and Barry ran off. I don't know how he can have done it, really. Come on, boy. Come on, boy. Come.
Barry was a phenomenon, a megastar. But the public intrusion into his personal life, which such a lifestyle predicates, irritated him.
All Barry ever wanted was to settle down, have kids, clean the house, and cook meals. He was that sort of man. But the media were constantly harassing him. I remember one time in particular when he was standing over an air vent and the wind blew his dress up over his ears. It was only a little, but the photographers blew it up out of all proportion. Everyone said that Barry made his career by lying on the floor in people's offices and opening his legs, but I know for a fact that he didn't do yoga. His sex life was completely ruined by the press. And I didn't know what he was doing in that Chinese laundry anyway.
And with the success, inevitably, came the pressure.
There was the whole drug scene at the time. I mean, everybody was getting stoned out of their minds just because they couldn't stand being interviewed by Barry. I mean, he was having to interview someone to wake up, he was having to interview someone to get to sleep. You know, it's a vicious circle. Eventually, he had to be hospitalized and operated on. The operation had a good effect. He was back to his normal self. He completely stopped interviewing total strangers in the street. He still asked the odd question like, what's the time, where's the bathroom, but nothing mainline. But the inevitable happened. He slipped back. I remember one time he asked me to lend him $1,000, said he wanted to buy a car, and I believed him. And he vanished for a few days. Eventually I found him in this subway lavatory with he had a tie, old necktie tied around his arm. He was interviewing himself with a dirty microphone.
There were a lot of people who said that Barry was jumping up to the eyeballs. Well, I know for a fact that he would have won the Kentucky Derby whatever. But not Barry the racehorse? Well, make up your mind then.
What then was the cause of Barry Normal's decline? Was it simply that he ran out of people to interview? Or perhaps, and more subtly, eventually, they just weren't great enough for him to bother anymore? Whatever the truth, he's now conducting that great last interview in the sky. One word, then, to describe Barry Normal. Captivating.
Sexy.
Enigmatic.
Bookcase.
Barry who?
Darling, how simply wonderful to see you, sweetness.
Lovely, darling. Is it really 2 years? It seems like about 5 minutes, doesn't it?
Yes. How time flies.
Yes, well, I mean, it certainly stood still when we were married, didn't it?
Yes. Tell me, how is that sweet little hairdresser you were going out with? What was the name? Rosie. How is he?
He died.
Oh, my God, I'm so sorry.
No, dear, he dyed my hair. Tell me, how are the kids getting on? How's Jason nowadays?
Oh, he's fine. Growing up more like you every day.
Oh, good.
Tremendously smelly.
You know, I miss them awfully, the kids. I really do.
Do you?
Mm.
Isn't that funny? They don't miss you at all. But then they're not all yours, are they?
Well, are you still going out with that disgusting Greek waiter you're going out with?
Well, he certainly did a lot more waiting around than you ever did, dear.
Oh, darling, do sit down. Don't let's quarrel, otherwise we'll make it.
That really is very silly.
Yeah.
That really is very childish indeed.
It stuck.
What stuck?
My hand stuck to your bottom.
What is sticking your hand to my bottom?
Chewing gum.
Chewing gum. Oh, my God, that's typical of you. You cover the house and the bloody stuff got the gerbil stuck to the stereo system and God knows what else. Well, I'm going to bend down and you're going to pull. Now, after 3, 1, 2, 3, and... No, it's not going to work, is it? Look, I'll try and get a piece out with this hand, all right? Just push against my shoulder, all right? 1, 2, 3, and push. Why did you have to put your bottom where my hand was?
I didn't put my bottom where your hand was at all. You've just got one spare hand, dear.
It's all right, I'll try and get a piece
You try and get a piece out.
Yes, yes.
You ready?
Yes, 1, 2, 3. It's not funny.
No, it's not funny at all, is it?
Take my arm and pull it.
Okay, dear. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Well, that's quite okay, dear. We just put our elbows out like this. You ready?
Yes.
And we pull off
Yes.
3, okay?
Yes.
1, 2, 3.
Darling?
Yes, darling?
I think I've got some gum left on my cheek, darling.
Yes, I think you have, darling.
Oh, my God.
What?
There's Bernard.
Where?
Over there.
Oh, my God.
Hello, Bernard. Darling?
Yes, darling?
I don't think this separation is going to work.
The story starts here, at the Moscow Arts Theatre, where the disease of method acting, or MA, as professionals call it, was first diagnosed by Konstantin Stanislavski. Carriers took it to America, where it bred in the Actors Studio of New York. The world suddenly sat up and took notice of the tragic plight of the first sufferers, as cinematic evidence revealed their pitiful behaviour. The MA sufferer's inability to make himself understood, the repetition of phrases, the involuntary twitching, and lack of physical coordination are all symptoms of the disease. A disease which spread like wildfire through the film medium as more and more actors fell victim to it. We examine the sad case of Sylvester de Mendretti, an out-of-work actor now working as an ice cream vendor. Sylvester comes from the classic Italian middle-class background, which is particularly prone to MA.
Vanilla, please. A what? You want a vanilla? You really want that? That is really it. That's it, huh? Yeah? Huh? This is this. Huh? Hey!
Chocolate ice cream, please.
You bastard! You want a chocolate? Huh? A chocolate? Okay, I'm cool. Okay.
What is this?
And of course, with the arrival of such films as The Deer Hunter to Britain, the disease has spread to this country and is now no longer contained on the screen.
Darling, I've got some rather bad news for you, I'm afraid. I'm pregnant.
I can do it.
No, it wasn't you.
I can't do it.
Yes, darling, that's how I know it wasn't you. It was the dust man.
He can do it.
Yes, he certainly can. I'm going to run away with him.
Oh, look, darling. Let's pretend I can do it.
You mean pretend it's ours?
Yes.
No.
Fine.
Look, I have to go now. Osric is waiting outside.
Osric, the dustman.
Look, if you want to know why he did it...
I don't want to know why he did it. I want to know how he did it.
God, she's nice.
I've never seen her before. Wonder where she's going. God, look at the bum on that. Whoa. No, she wouldn't fancy me anyway. Well, she might. Hello, I'm in there all right. I think I'll ask her out tonight.
I bet he thinks I'm a bird.
Now, some people think that we in the Tory party talk a load of nonsense. But that just isn't so. I mean, as I was saying to Maggie Thatcher only 400 years ago, we're going to have to fight in order to win the battle ahead of us. And as a matter of party policy, we believe that it's about time that we won the last war. Now, talking of wars brings me to the question of my wife. Now, my wife has fought in 2 world wars. She's fought for the likes of your great-great-grandchildren, and what gratitude have they shown? None. These people just shrug their shoulders and say, it's nothing to do with us, we haven't been born yet. That's not good enough. I'm sick to death of people just standing around on their backsides, sitting on their hands, twiddling their thumbs. They've got to pull their finger out and show us what they're made of. Industrial relations. Now, as you all know, we and the Tories are all for cooperation with the unions. They play ball with us and we'll scratch theirs. Now, you may think it's old-fashioned to use words like prithee dost thine fardels tarry. But only the other day, an old lady came up to me. She must have been over 90, and she begged me to make Britain more like it was when she was a gal. So, with a tear in me eye, I put her grandson up me chimney and took her pension book away. You know, I think she died a happier woman later on that day. Why then am I saying all this to you today? Well, I'll tell you why. Because if I was saying it to you yesterday, you'd have heard it all before. We in the Tory party believe in giving you the facts tomorrow, so I shan't give them to you today. Good night.
For as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to be shy and introverted. Even at primary school, I was aware that I wasn't not like the others. I tried to eat the plasticine they gave me and wet myself and be a difficult pupil, but in the end, I'd make an aeroplane like everyone else. I began to see inspiration as to what I should do with my life. Simon from next door had been to see the Railway Children at the local cinema and decided to be a train driver. His brother Jonathan had seen To Sir With Love and decided to be a teacher. I decided to follow their example. It was June. I saw Ben Hur and decided to be a leper. I bought a bell and some rags and used to walk round the streets ringing my bell and shouting unclean, unclean, but nobody on the Pine Lodge housing estate believed me. You know, but Christ, I've tried to be different, I really have. I've tried not to mix with people. I used to sit in my local pub in the corner with me face turned to the wall, but complete strangers used to come up and buy me a drink.
Would you like a drink?
People can be so cruel. I've heard there's an operation in America which makes you grossly inferior. They cut off both your legs and give you an offensive smell. But I know in my heart of hearts that I'm never going to be able to afford that. I've just got to live with the fact that I'm not an introvert and that I haven't got any problems. But it isn't going to be easy.
Now, do you remember the good old days when Dennis Norton used to chair a show called Looks Familiar? Well, now, Friday night, Saturday morning takes on a nostalgic air as we look back to a bygone age when the only time you stuck a safety pin through your nose was by accident. When inflation just meant inflating things. Yeah. When a wage freeze meant putting your pay packet in the fridge. And when I used to write introductions that were funny.
Oh, yes.
Tonight we've managed to dig up some very old clips and some even older comedians, so it's thanks to a preservation order that's been slapped on him, we're very pleased to welcome Mr. Arthur Hasbeen.
Anything else?
Arthur, apparently there's a very amusing anecdote attached to your I thank you catchphrase.
Anything else?
I love it, I really... Yeah. Now, apparently you were working the clubs once and you actually overheard somebody saying in a pub, why doesn't Arthur use I thank you as a catchphrase?
No, Dan, you see, what actually happened, hang on, was after my 8th major surgical operation, I had my throat removed and I developed this speech impediment.
I went to Blackpool once. It was shut.
Lovely, lovely. And of course, that was the inimitable voice of Mr. Colin Hasbeen. Colin, I was wondering actually if you'd tell us that wonderful anecdote you used to tell about when you went to Batley and it was shut.
Oh, yes. Yes. Well, you see, what in fact happened was, you see, I was working a club in Pontefract, you see.
Yeah.
And the wife wanted to go shopping.
Yeah.
But Pontefract was shut.
Yeah.
So we got on a bus.
Yeah.
And went to Batley.
Yeah.
And when we got there, it was shut.
Oh, lovely story. Beautiful story. Moving quickly on before Arthur's life support system runs out. On to our first mystery voice, and here's somebody I'm sure you'll have no difficulty in recognising.
We'll meet again.
Oh, yes.
Arthur, do you recognise him?
Oh, yes. Lovely man. What's his name now? Jimmy, was it?
Vera.
Freddie.
Vera.
Don't tell me. It's Vera. Vera has been.
Vera
Has been.
You knew her well, did you, Arthur?
Well, Vera sure digs me and Vera has been. Of course, that's what you don't get in showbiz these days. You know, don't get the landladies, do you?
The landladies, no, you don't get them. You don't get them.
You, Arthur, must have some monumentally tedious landlady stories to tell us.
Oh, yes.
I was wondering, actually, if you tell us... I'm laughing already, and I know. I was wondering if you'd tell us the Bournemouth story.
Shall I tell the Bournemouth story?
It's lovely. I love it. I love that. I love that story. I love it. I love this. I love it. Have you told it yet?
Yeah. No, I haven't really. You know, I don't. That's the Bournemouth story.
Well, I went to Bournemouth once. It was shut.
Lovely ad-lib from Colin.
Unfortunately, their Bournemouth story. Well, you see, back in the 20s, you know, we all used to stay with this one landlady, see?
Yeah.
Now, she, you know, was a woman.
I can imagine, yeah.
She had this big old house, you know, loads of rooms that she let out to rent, you know. Now, we called her the landlady.
Did you?
Fair enough, fair enough. Yeah.
Every night, we'd get back there very, 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 very late, you know.
Yeah.
And in the morning, we'd get up and we'd go out again.
Beautiful story, lovely. It reminds me of that lovely, beautiful, classic story you used to tell, Colin, about, I've forgotten where, Bristol, was that where it was?
No, Walsall.
No, it was near Walsall.
Oh, yes, Solihull, yes. Yeah, well, you see, what in fact happened was, you see, I went to Solihull, and it was open. Oh, Christ, I buggered that one up.
Of course, Arthur, you used to finish your act with that beautiful, lovely song and dance routine you used to do. I was just wondering if you could do that lovely little song and dance you used to do for us tonight. Close the show. Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Well, sadly, that brings us to the end of another comedian's career. It just leaves for me to say good night from me, good night from Colin, and from Arthur.
Hey, hang on.
In fact, I must now draw this edition of Friday Night, Saturday Morning to a close as I see the times hovering around midnight, and at any moment I could turn into Harold Wilson. Good night.
About 12:30, I think. Oh. I'm not sure. I think my watch has stopped. We'll ask Timothy. Timothy.
Yeah?
What time is it?
Dunno.
You couldn't move up a bit, could you, Timothy? Oh. How's, Mary?
I'm all right.
Sorry, Mary, I didn't wake you.
No, you didn't wake me. I was awake.
All right. It's a bit cramped in this bed, isn't it? Is Frank awake? I think he's out to the world. Really? Oh my God, he is, isn't he? Frank, you're out to the world.
Out to the... Oh my God, I am. Sorry.
What was that noise? What? What was that noise? I heard something. Golly.
Hello there.
Oh, shut up. Go back to sleep. I don't think there's anything. What was that? That was it again. Oh, that was somebody Oh, my God. Don't look now, but Francis and Stephen are... Oh, my God. Look, I told you not to look. Keep perfectly still. Perfectly calm. And whatever you do, don't look over. Oh, my God. It's a bit cramped in here, isn't it? I've never had 25 people in my bed before. It's like a cocoon.
Hello there.
Oh, shut up.